Welcome to the ClearBrand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Josh Ramsey, for today, and I'm joined by my co-host, you know him well, Alexander Toth. Welcome, Alexander.
Happy to be here. This is kind of fun to reverse our typical roles.
Yeah, I'm excited about the new series on founders that we are putting together. I'm interviewing some amazing founders. And as I was looking for potential guests on the show, I thought, hold on, I know a founder pretty well. And here we are. So I'm excited about a two-part conversation with you around your journey as a founder and really just following the rabbit hole where that goes. So looking forward to some sharing some stories. And I guess just to start us off, founding. Is this the first company? It's the first one I've joined.
Founding.
But
well, I no, actually. So kind of, I guess would be the true answer here. In college, I'd always known that I was born to lead, and that had manifested itself in different ways over the years. For a while, I was convinced I was going to be a movie director, something that I still keep open. One day maybe. Yep. As I've mentioned before, I've written a screenplay at this point. Still working on seeing what happens with that. But anyway, so I always knew I was born to lead. And so in college, I was actually working with a friend on starting a commercial cleaning company, was our idea. He had been doing that for a little bit, and I saw the ease of starting, low costs, low risk, and the scalability of it. It was fascinating to take on a commercial cleaning client we had for a long time and to kind of see, this is the life I could have had,
Yeah.
But that was we started that, I was just out of college, and that ended up not happening though. He ended up joining the military, went somewhere else. So I spent a couple of years figuring out what I was going to do next.
Well, before I jump too far ahead, I want to go to that line of born to lead and kind of accepting that I'm a leader myself. However, I felt like in my own journey, I was kind of not always ready to take up that mantle. You seem to have kind of accepted that leadership, the two sides of that. There's some great parts about it. It's also comes with a bunch of responsibility and can be very difficult. So was that something you just always knew that this was going to be your path, or did you resist it at all? Did you get pushed into it due to circumstance, or what was that like?
I felt like I couldn't resist it, even if I wanted to. I am very introverted, and when I was younger, I was very shy, and so I never felt like I was the right person. But I continually found myself in the roles, and whatever it was that I was doing, people around me would essentially promote me, whether it was like a group project or a job, whatever it was. So there was always something that others saw in me, I think, that meant that I essentially couldn't avoid it. I'm sure that I could have ran and hid,
Yeah.
But I think that was part of it. I think also when I had roles that were not in leadership, I was generally frustrated and frustrating for my leaders as well. So it was easier to accept it.
Yeah. It's I think that is an interesting angle, and a lot of, I think, adverse situations occur when leaders try and resist it because there's this leadership vacuum. And we chatted about this when we were talking about project management and in the course that we have on project management in the ClearBrand Academy. But this kind of leadership abhors a vacuum. So if there's no one taking charge of it, it kind of causes a bit of chaos. But I'm really glad you did.
Yeah, someone's going to take charge, even the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly. So if the right person doesn't take it, then the wrong person does, and that's not great. Okay, so I'm just personally, I'm a benefactor of you taking that seriously. So thank you for that. But moving on, so you've cleaning services, you decide, road went a different way. Then how did you get into marketing? It
was through story. So my love of story, I started writing my first story, and kindergarten or junior high, and learned pretty quick I'm not a novelist. I know that I talk a lot. Everywhere that a listener may have heard me, I'm talking, but generally I prefer to listen, and I'm not there's just a lot of words you got to have if you're going to write books. So then I don't know, I always had this love for it, and that's where marketing came in, was realizing, a lot of marketing is storytelling. And there's a lot of folks who talk about this. Yeah. The one who I was following at the time was Donald Miller. And I guess I'm still StoryBrand certified, so that hasn't necessarily ended. But he's the one who kind of connected those dots for me. Storytelling and marketing go hand in hand. They actually work better when they're together. Yeah. So that's how I got into marketing. I did it for a company, a distillery in Colorado. Helped them quadruple. That was not all from the work that I did, but we had a great team, and that was a fun journey. And it seemed like a natural next step.
Yeah.
And marketing agencies are similar to the commercial cleaning companies in that there is a very low risk. There's a low cost of entry. Yeah. The main cost I've learned over the years is the team. And without the right team, you can't really deliver. And that is something that's different from commercial cleaning. Anybody can show up and clean. You scrub things, you spray things, There's a different kind of lowest common denominator for all of the different roles within marketing. And so it took years to learn that, but, I did learn there actually is a cost to entry. And it is significant with marketing. But at the beginning, it seemed like, this is low risk, low cost. Great. I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got a similarity there in terms of my, my journey into the marketing spaces, again, also through story and ClearBrand was my Donald Miller. So it's been wonderful to kind of jump on top of 7 or 6 years of work. So did you come across, was the book written by then? Was it Traveling a Wagon?
It was just a podcast. It was and they were doing workshops. StoryBrand was doing workshops back then. No book yet. I got certified before the book came out.
Yeah.
And then the book launched, and that was exciting for all of us.
Yeah. Amazing. And then did you work as a guide, kind of just consulting as a guide, just working on story? Or did you very quickly, or did you have your own marketing agency already?
I wanted to write, when I started. To me, it seemed like it was a good path for a screenwriter, right? Screenplays, movie screenplays don't take as much words as novels. In fact, if you've never read one, I recommend it. I think that they're so much fun. Screenplay. Yeah. They're a whole bunch of fun to read.
Yeah. Lots of space for imagination and some guidance. I think kind of interesting just thinking about it now. It's kind of that structure and flexibility that we've spoken about in other podcasts, because there is this clearly defined structure, but you can very quickly build upon it, which is quite cool.
It's much more like a comic book without the pictures. A screenplay is. It's amazing. So anyway, it seemed like writing would be the way to get into that. So I initially my goal was to write emails. So I didn't even realize that I was starting a marketing agency at the beginning. But one of the things that I believe about entrepreneurship is, one of the big mistakes I see people make is they start off with a mission. And there's so many folks out there talking about this. You got to have your mission to start with. No, you don't. I think starting with mission is a huge mistake, because you need revenue. Otherwise, you don't have a company.
Yeah.
And so if your mission is not making you money, you're done.
Absolutely.
So I think this is something that I feel grateful and lucky about, but I realized I wasn't making money selling email sequences. Nobody wanted to pay for those. They want to pay for websites.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I can write a website and I'll pay somebody else to design and develop it. Awesome. So slowly started to step into that. And then I kind of realized, wow, if I have a team rather than paying, somebody in terms of like outsourcing, we can, I'm taking some profits, they're taking some profits, because that's how outsourcing works.
Yeah.
And I can bring it in-house, and we can, as a company, have those profits. that were being split two ways. Now they're all for ClearBrand, and we can use that to grow and things. And so that's kind of how it became just me. And then now we're a company that builds websites. And then pretty soon I learned that after people have a website, they need some marketing. They need to grow their company. In fact, I think part of it was learning that was just kind of getting frustrated that the website itself is not enough. It's not just that marketing is the next step. It's that I don't know. I don't even know where I'd put the website in the process right now. The marketing is the step. Marketing is the step.
Yeah. It's and
I think you can get a lot further.
All roads point to the website. It's these days.
Yeah.
Especially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not all roads point to the website. All roads should be pointing to the sales.
Exactly.
And the website can be one of those roads. But I think while it is very important, I think what we noticed was people coming to us on a website thinking that the website was going to save their company or was going to grow their company, and they weren't going to have to do any work. Well, no, actually, hard work is very important.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to hard work, I just want to reiterate that point because that's something that I've been the victim of. Mission without revenue. So even I've got a background in kind of social enterprise, social good, business for purpose, and business for profit makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. Even if you're in the purpose space, so you're like in the mission space, or I see how the language is getting flowery already. Yeah. But I really wish that I'd known that sooner. Which, of course, it's a school of knocks. But,
and I think this is where this is a huge problem with people saying purpose over profits or people over profits, right? It's a really cute phrase. Oh, doesn't that just sound good? Oh, it makes me feel good inside.
Yeah.
Guess how you serve your people?
Yeah, you keep
with
employed.
Your profits.
Yeah.
Guess how you serve your purpose?
Yeah.
With your profits. So as a business, this should not be a conversation. There is no conversation of people over profits. No. The people are served by the profits. So the first thing we need to do is get some profits. Now we can talk about doing that in a way that doesn't destroy your employees.
Human. Yeah.
Right now it's fascinating to watch Twitter and Disney, right?
Yeah.
Twitter bought by Elon Musk, new CEO. Disney just kicked out Bob Chapek, brought back Bob Iger. This happened yesterday. We're filming on November 22nd.
Oh, great.
Brought back Bob Iger. And the one of these, I think it was Bloomberg or somebody posted a memo from Bob Iger to Disney that he sent out Monday morning. And it's just gratitude, right? And Bob Iger led Disney to some of its most successful years ever. And I think we're all anticipating that he's going to do it again. And we're watching, on the one hand, as Elon Musk, new CEO at Twitter, is coming in and making a whole bunch of changes. And Twitter's in a worse situation than Disney is.
Yeah.
But we're also watching Bob Iger, and and I'll just pull this up. He starts by saying, "I want to begin with gratitude." I'll just read this. He says, "Dear DMED employees," that's the Disney Media Entertainment Division, "as we embark on the transformative work that I have mentioned to you in my email last night, I want to begin by offering my sincere appreciation and gratitude to each and every one of you. This is a guy who gets results. And he's not cracking the whip here.
Yeah. I'm
not saying that he doesn't crack the whip, but gratitude is a different starting place. Yeah.
Yeah, I am... I feel like this being the first in my series of interviews with founders that have, pushed through some difficulties and built something significant. I'm just so excited about learning from all these different founders, and I just love where you took that in terms of Twitter and Disney and looking at these different leadership styles, and then again circling back around to leadership. We've gone into revenue. But now here we are back in leadership. Is there anything else you want to throw in around these two companies and what they're going through right now? Your insights, what you're seeing?
I'll come back to the point that I think I had momentarily forgotten, but it was that profit versus people conversation. Why are they versus?
Yeah.
Why is it over?
Yeah.
I'm just a huge fan of the both and. I think that leadership and entrepreneurship is a constant balance of opposing forces.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's helpful to choose people over profit. I think you need the profit to serve the people, but you need the profit first off.
Yeah.
You also need the people. You also need the purpose.
Yeah.
And I see no reason to put one over the other.
Yeah. And as against, someone who's on the inside of ClearBrand and kind of stewing in these concepts that you're speaking about here, kind of quite theoretically, the both and there was some mention there of, cracking whips and doing what might not come naturally, or doing what is required to get profits. I do want to put a small pin in that, and I know we're going to dig into the company culture at ClearBrand in a follow-up episode to really give that the space that it needs, because there's a lot in there.
And there's a lot of accountability in this conversation, I'm realizing, because if I say something that is just not true, you're in the company.
Oh,
you're like, hold on a second.
Hold on, I was in our daily stand-up yesterday.
Right,
For anyone that hasn't heard the story, I think I want to mention it here just a little bit, because I think it gives me a little bit, it reduces the potential bias that you might be thinking as you watch this or listen to this, because I was building my own website. When I found ClearBrand, I found the website blueprint, which is a template that we give away. And, that ClearBrand gave to me. And I used that to build my site. And then I joined the academy, and I really was just blown away by the teaching, the story, the systems, the training that ClearBrand offers. And so I reached out to the team, to Alexander, in fact, and I said, hey, I think we should meet. I really like what you're doing. And so that's how I ended up here. So I was a fan of ClearBrand before I joined the team. Yeah, and I'm super happy to be here. So great. So you've discovered story. You've pivoted to, pursuing profit and building out websites. Now you're outsourcing. Now you're building a team. Was there a significant step that obviously you've mentioned you need to give these ongoing services, the marketing services to your clients. What was the next significant step that you were faced with, a choice or a realization that something new?
I think that was really it. I think beyond that, there were either many significant steps that were all seemed very small in the moment, or many insignificant steps that built up to something larger. I was watching an interview with Tim Cook recently, CEO of Apple, and I loved his approach. That somebody was asking him, basically, how did you get here? Where are you going next? Essentially, with the health side of Apple, because Apple Watch and some of these products, they're moving into this health space.
Yeah.
And Tim Cook's response was, we're just going to keep pulling the thread, right? Like we're unraveling something that's unknown, and we just want to be curious. We're just going to keep pulling the thread. And I think that is a great descriptor. I think that the big shift was the going into something that can make money. And from there, that's how it feels, is kind of pulling the thread. What's the thing that could be next? Just staying curious, while also staying in business. Yeah. I think that a big portion of growth is surviving long enough to build momentum.
Yeah.
All this overnight success stuff is a whole bunch of baloney. You gotta show up. You gotta work really hard.
Yeah.
And eventually, that hard work could turn into momentum. And if you go out of business, you don't get it. You don't get the momentum. So there's a whole bunch that goes into survival.
I just love what happens when we kind of start talking about these concepts, really enjoying applying what you're saying to myself. And I really encourage you as the listener to apply what Alexander is saying to your journey right now, whether you're a founder or not. For my example right now, I'm in business development, and I can really relate to this following the thread and this curiosity piece. I feel like sometimes with my business development efforts, things happen that I could never have predicted. I was almost like, okay, I'm going to follow this, I need to check in on these leads or this area of the market that I'm doing outreach to, or whatever it is. And then it kind of just unfolds. And I think what I've really been appreciating at ClearBrand is that as someone who can get a little bit lost in that, it's also important to have that structure, that kind of clear, keep coming back to culture here, but anyway, that clear system of what you're systematically working towards, so you don't just kind of unfurl that thread until it's so far away that you can't get back. or something like that. So that's been really great. But I just want to remind everyone to think of how this applies to your own kind of use case. And maybe that's a nice segue into actually asking you, Alexander, intentionally to speak into that. How does someone that is feeling the black hole vacuum of leadership, that vacuum that kind of pulls you towards it, how do you embrace it? How do you develop skills? Can you develop leadership skills? Are they just do you get hit with a leadership stick and then that's it? Or if we could talk about applying it or growing a skill set or responding to that call, what is that? Any thoughts?
That's a tough question. So I'll and I was really inspired by a study done on birds, where the researchers took eggs from one species of birds and another species of birds, and they replaced them. Right, so we have species A, we'll call it species B, and they had some species A raised by species A, but then they also had some species A raised by species B, and vice versa. And they watched the development. And one of the things that they found interesting was that the birds that were raised by the other species took longer to make any noise. They weren't chirping as soon. They also took longer to start piecing together what would eventually become a song. And over time, they actually sang the song of their own species. So even though they were hearing the song of this other species, they sang their own song. But it took so long because what the researchers realized is they had to hear each note of their song sung before they could start to piece it together. And they essentially viewed it in terms of activating, right? They had the song in their DNA. They had their own song in their DNA, but they couldn't sing it until it was activated. And I am convinced that I have some kind of great leader in my recent DNA, or potentially multiple, that somehow kind of coalesced. And I think that a large part of leading and learning to lead is activating those pieces. There are certain leadership books that I've read and I have said, this is garbage. I hope that nobody reads this. I hope that nobody listens to this. It's terrible. There are other books that I've read that I thought, this just feels true.
Yeah.
Now, the problem, I studied philosophy in school, so the initial problem with this is, well, what if somebody comes across something that feels true that might not be true, right? There is an objective truth. There are things that are good leadership, but I also think that there are a variety of things that are good leadership. Studies show, research into great businesses shows that there is not a leadership personality.
Yep.
Some of the best leaders were outrageously introverted.
Yeah.
Some of them were shy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting to me. At the same time, there are qualities of great leadership. And I think that Jim Collins is the one who's done the best job of summarizing them with the level 5 leader, with the combination of ambition and humility. You have to be competent. You have to be able to do the job. You have to be able to manage people, communicate. But you still can do that while being shy. Jim Collins believes it's harder to be a good leader and be charismatic, because part of being the best leader possible is to not be the center of attention. It is to not be the one who has all the answers. And the charismatic person struggles with this because people naturally come to them for the answers. And so anyway, that's kind of as close as I can get to an answer. I would say I am not a fan of these conversations around let me change how I'm going to start the sentence. I do not think, I think that the conversations around giftings are overemphasized. There are certain things that you must do to be a leader. And if those are not part of your, quote, gifts, you either figure it out or you get out of the role.
Yeah.
I do not lead in many ways now how I did 10 years ago. there are also many ways that I lead in the same way or in a very similar way. I think that my general focus, my general approach is very similar. I think that firing people and, surviving, doing what it takes to survive as a company has really hardened a lot of parts within me. And so there is now this internal opposing forces I had mentioned of this hardening, but also this staying open and being grateful, Yeah,
the image that comes to mind as you're saying that is kind of the leadership qualities, and it's not to say each one of these kind of images is the wrong one, but it's kind of the admiral in a gilded office making these big decisions versus kind of a sergeant that's in the trenches, kind of leading from the front, and I think that's what makes being an entrepreneur, or in my experience, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, quite unique, because you only are there because you've been there. You had to start with yourself, doing everything yourself. There was no one else. You had to do everything. And as you kept doing the doing and surviving and making calls and growing, then you could invite others in, and then it becomes this other kind of thing. Does that ring true, or what are your thoughts on that perspective of like the difference between a very distant leader that's making decisions versus someone who's kind of really understands what it's like to be on the coalface or doing the doing that the leadership decisions are resulting in?
Yeah, you said a few things. So first thing I'll respond to is I don't think that the leaders need to have done everything. Steve Jobs never, I don't even know if Steve Jobs knew how to code. I know that he considered himself to be the orchestra conductor. And the orchestra conductor doesn't actually need to play all the instruments. They need to play the members, the orchestra, right? I do think that there is grit, though, and there is hard work, and that is different. It is not the same as sitting in an office bossing people around. Abraham Lincoln was not a soldier. He was a lawyer, if I'm remembering right. He was a lawyer. And then he became the president of the U.S. And then, during the Civil War, so first off, there was this decision to go to war. Second off, he would listen to the reports of how many thousands of people had died that day. And he would choose to keep going. And that's the type of hard work. It's different from Ulysses S. Grant, who's also in the Civil War, a key piece of the North winning. And I think that this is another interesting thing. Peter S. Drucker points this out in the book, The Effective Executive, which I think is excellent. Ulysses S. Grant was the one who could win battles. And so first, he's the one who's out fighting rather than Lincoln, and they both are necessary. But second, Ulysses S. Grant was also an alcoholic. And so some of Lincoln's advisors came to him and said, what are you doing? This guy he's just drinking so much. He cannot be the leader. And Lincoln said, I wish that I could give the rest of our army whatever it is that he's drinking, because he's actually winning.
Wow.
So Lincoln didn't care that he was an alcoholic. There's this space of you've got to just get the job done.
Yeah.
The job, it's got to be done. It's got to be done well. We have to win. And so there's this tolerance, I think, in each person, a tolerance for doing things that we don't feel like we should be doing. Yeah. If we're committed to remaining in our gifting and doing what we think we're, what we're good at or things like that, we're not going to make it. We're going to have to do things that we don't want to do. At the same time, research does show we should lean more into our strengths than our weaknesses. And I think that Lincoln's strengths, it seems like, were decision-making, consideration, making the hard decisions that nobody else would make. Ulysses S. Grant's strength was strategy, winning battles, and they're all kind of necessary, and they all do include a certain amount of suffering.
Yeah. It's an interesting word to bring into kind of a conversation about entrepreneurial endeavors. It makes me think of an interview I saw with Elon Musk, and the interviewer asked him, Elon, have you got any words of encouragement for young entrepreneurs out there? And he said, if you need encouragement, don't become an entrepreneur. So,
exactly. I totally agree with that. Yes.
The other one I heard,
I'm
which
so into that.
I think you'll chuckle on, was being an entrepreneur is like waking up every day and getting a brick in the face.
Yeah.
So it's
pretty much.
Bit of a different image, but
I think, I mentioned suffering. One of my main kind of life principles is that you choose your suffering. Yeah. We don't get to choose if we're going to suffer. Mm-hmm. We're going to suffer. Things are going to happen. But we do often get to choose how. And I think that this is the thing for everybody. But in the entrepreneur, it's very specific in terms of, do I want to suffer by doing lots and lots of hard things? Mm-hmm. But I'm an entrepreneur. I'm building this dream, or do I want to suffer by not doing what I feel like I must?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's suffering
back to that vacuum.
Both sides of it. Yeah. I mean, it's like going to the gym. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing. Do I want to suffer by working out and feeling physical pain, taking the time to go to the gym? Going to the gym's annoying, or do I want to suffer by maybe there's a variety of possibilities here. One, not being as strong as I'd like. Two, not looking the way that I would like. Those are sufferings as well. Same thing with eating well. I mean, it shows up everywhere in life, and I think for the entrepreneur, it is just, but it's a choice between two large amounts of suffering. On the one hand, the large amount of suffering by being the entrepreneur, and on the other, the large amount of suffering by choosing to not be the entrepreneur that you believe that you should be. You know.
Yeah, and I think the third option that people get seduced into or get almost deluded, that there's a way to avoid it altogether, and
to have no suffering, right?
And
that's its own kind of suffering.
Yeah. I think, and anyway, I think that's part of a bigger conversation, but an important one to think about. Am I trying to avoid suffering? And this is where there's got to be a self-reflection. There's got to be a looking at yourself, because you can tell it sometimes, but in your kind of deeper personal reflection, you can go like, I could have, but I didn't, and I said that I was no way that I could have. And again, as I'm saying these things, I know that we're skirting around some concepts and some clear language that we use in ClearBrand to unpack culture. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into that conversation. And if you are too, then be sure to hang around. Is there any final word that you'd like to share with us about your journey as a founder? You've covered a lot of stuff, Alexander. Really appreciate the time. Anything else you want to close out with before I talk a little bit more about what's coming up in the podcast and where you can interact with us as listeners?
I think I'm happy. I'm excited for our next conversation, though.
Yeah, amazing. So be sure to join us in, I'm not sure when it's going to be, but it's going to be pretty soon, where we'll be unpacking the culture code at clearbrand.com. And of course, please be aware that you can work with us, or we can work for you, or you can work on your own marketing. We've got some great options out there. So we've got a Done For You, which is a full digital marketing service from website build all the way through ongoing marketing. We've got a Done With You, where we train both other marketing agencies and in-house marketing teams. So check that out on the website. And then finally, we have a do-it-yourself option, which is the one that I started on. And not to say you'll end up on the team, but it was an amazing course and template to use to build my site. And so all of those will be in the show notes, so you can check them out, and definitely check us out at clearbrand.com. Thank you so much for your time, and we will talk to you again very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the ClearBrand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to outsource your marketing to our team, go to clearbrand.com.